It's all part of us. We can all choose love. It'll lift you up.
Welcome back. This is Lesson 6 on Compassion in Action. This is the final attribute in the formula for choosing love. Let's first do our review of Lesson 5, which was all about forgiveness. Scarlett shared her powerful personal story of forgiveness. She talked about blame and how it takes away our personal power and even the ability to change how we're feeling. We reviewed the process for being emotionally intelligent, how we can mind the gap between emotions and our experience, and our thoughts, which are our feelings. We studied the anger iceberg. The emotion of anger always has underlying feelings. You see the iceberg, which is the tip, but your understanding of what you're feeling, like frustration, disappointment, guilt, shame, that will determine how you process your anger and whether it will become a blow-up or peace. You learned about the different ways to practice forgiveness. For example, Dr. Hugh Len and the practice of Ho'oponopono with the phrases, I love you, I'm sorry, forgive me, thank you. We talked about thinking or writing about 3 things that we're grateful for with people that we're having difficulty with and using this as a learning experience. So now we're going to talk about compassion. First, let's talk about what compassion is. The important thing to remember is that compassion has 2 parts, understanding and action. This is why the formula is compassion in action. That's the piece that most people forget about. The action piece is key. Compassion is a verb. You need to do something. So let's break it down. The first piece is about understanding the suffering of another. This means that you fully understand what the other person is going through. The second part is the action component. It is doing something to help someone in need or alleviating the pain or suffering of someone else. What are the benefits of compassion, you ask? Well, there are tremendous benefits to practicing compassion for others. All of the following benefits of doing for others have been individually scientifically researched. Remember, when we understand the benefits of something, we experience them on an exponential level. Giving makes us feel happy. It releases oxytocin and other feel-good neurochemicals in our brain. Another benefit of compassion is that it's good for you, for your general health and well-being. It promotes cooperation, social and relationship skills. Doing for other cultivates social connection. It's fulfilling. What you give, you get back. Compassion in action evokes gratitude. Giving is contagious. It creates a ripple effect that positively impacts many others. Giving of ourselves counteracts depression, anger, and anxiety. Compassion in action reduces and relieves stress, and it increases self-confidence. Being in service to others gives us a sense of purpose. Compassion in action enables us to have better physical and emotional pain management and lower blood pressure. Listen to this. When we practice compassion in action, it adds years to our life. Research studies show a 22% reduction in our mortality rate as a parent when you are listening to your child. Look at your child. Give your full attention. Paraphrase what your understanding of what you hear your child telling you. Ask questions. When we listen, we also need to pay attention to the silence. Don't try to fill in the silence. Think about why your child would be silent. Just like the classic musician Mozart said, the music is not in the notes, but in the silence in between. Your goal in being a good listener is to gather information and connect with your child. So this is the L in Luca for listen. Listen to learn. This helps bring our focus to the present moment. Okay, the U is for understanding. Understand to know. This is about really processing what you hear and connecting the pieces that you learned from listening into a whole picture or understanding. This is taking into consideration what your child's perspective of reality is. Having a holistic understanding means you use what you know about your child. Maybe if he's a worrier, or if he's tired or hungry. These factors play a huge part in how he behaves. True understanding means making connections between what you know and what you learned from people, facts, and ideas. Repeat in your own words what your understanding is. All right. Now the C in Luca is for connect. Connect to capabilities. This is about finding the people or the links to the resources that have the potential to solve the problem. Resources can be people, places, or things. Your social network and technology are resources. The Jessie Lewis ChooseLove.org website and materials from your Choosing Love at Home classes are resources. Connect to the people, places, or things that will help you to be more compassionate, help you solve issues, and help make your life more peaceful and joyful. The A in Luca is for act. Act to solve. This is the action, doing something to help alleviate the problem or suffering. To act, you must overcome fear, develop responsibility, and resilience, and sometimes practice the act of non-doing. Remember how courage is the foundation for the rest of the Choose Love formula? It takes courage to act, especially if the act is non-doing. For example, as a parent, sometimes the best thing to do is to do nothing, the act of non-doing. Now, let's take a minute to listen to Dr. Cook explain the difference between empathy and compassion from his book.
Compassion and empathy are commonly confused as being synonymous. They are very, very different. The compassion-empathy difference is more than semantic. The consequences are pragmatic. Understanding the difference can help you build resiliency and avoid burnout. First, empathy is feeling the same emotion as someone else, and compassion is feeling kindness towards another person. Where empathy is about stepping into the shoes of another to understand and share their feelings, compassion is about acquiring a 360 degrees understanding of the suffering or problem that a person is experiencing, and then taking action to resolve it. Compassion involves understanding and acting, but empathy is singular in purpose. It's emotionally absorbing the feelings of another. It's the difference between, quote, I feel your pain, which is empathy, and I understand and will do something about it. That's compassion. Our brain knows the difference between compassion and empathy, even if we aren't aware of it. Dr. Tanya Singer, the director of neuroscience at the Max Planck Institute for Human Cognitive and Brain Sciences in Leipzig, Germany, has used MRI scanners to show that compassion and empathy are two different phenomena associated with different brain activity patterns. That's a quote by her. When we think compassionately, we light up the same regions of the brain, check this out, as love. But empathetic thinking lights up regions associated, and check this out, with pain. The neuroscience effect of having compassion at the forefront of our thinking is positive for each of us as individuals and as organizations. The effect, in very, very basic terms, is that when we think from a compassionate mindset, we release the peptide hormone oxytocin, which then activates the neurotransmitters of dopamine. Dopamine is that brain reward feeling we have, and serotonin, which reduces anxiety. Both of them, dopamine and serotonin, contribute to happiness and optimism, two characteristics that contribute to success. Compassion's strength as a power source for fostering individual and organizational success is that it is not only derived from the same neural networks as love, but it is centrally focused on the concern and care for others. When empathy is used as the source for helping another, the central motivation is to alleviate your own pain and stress. And that egocentric motivation is, I believe, one of the keys for understanding why burnout occurs much easier when we think empathetically. Emotionally absorbing another's feelings, which empathy entails, is physically draining and can make you feel metaphorically stuck in quicksand. This has been commonly mischaracterized as compassion fatigue. If anything, it's empathy fatigue. Compassion, on the other hand, keeps the emotional quicksand at a distance by using a more cognitive understanding of a person's suffering when attempting to alleviate the pain. It's understanding without absorbing. Let me repeat that. Compassion is understanding without absorbing. If our society's caregivers, the nurses, paramedics, doctors, social workers, police, fire personnel, if they could learn how to harness the power of compassion, they would be helping themselves just as much as they are helping others. That's the difference between compassion and empathy.
After the Sandy Hook tragedy, my son JT, who was 12 years old at the time and in 7th grade, didn't want to go to school. I didn't want him to either. I'd sent one son to school and he didn't come home. I didn't want to send my only surviving son. We struggled a bit and no one could help us. About a month later, 2 orphan genocide survivors from Rwanda asked to Skype with JT. They felt compassion for him and felt that they could help by sharing their experience and how they overcame it. I remember that day clearly. We set up a laptop on JT's desk in his room. 2 young adults, Chantel and Matthew, came on the screen with an interpreter in between. They told JT that they had heard about his little brother's murder all the way over in Rwanda, and they were so sorry. They wanted to share their experience with JT so that he would know that he would be okay and feel joy again. I remember standing behind him thinking, these people have credibility. They've been through worse than we have, and they're saying we're going to be okay. I'm going to listen. They started sharing their story. In 1994, Rwanda experienced a genocide where over 1 million Tutsis were murdered by their neighboring Hutus within 100 days. Chantel and Matthew's stories were slightly different, but basically they were 8 years old when their neighbors broke into their huts with machetes and murdered their parents and then tried to murder them. They found their way into an orphanage. Once their physical wounds healed, they were grateful they survived, grateful for the walls that gave them protection, the food they were given, and the compassion they were shown. Being grateful strengthened them to realize that they had to forgive the killers, they called them, or they would go down the same path of anger and destruction. Once they made the choice to forgive, they were able to find meaning in their suffering by sharing their story of healing with others, like they were doing with JT. I remember sitting with JT afterwards. We started thinking of things we were grateful for and realized we had so much to be grateful for. Our family, friends, our animals, and each other. We both made the choice to forgive the shooter. Later, I watched as JT wrote in a journal. "What are you writing?" I asked. I'll never forget his answer. "Those kids reached out to me in love, and I'm going to reach back out to them. I'm going to raise money for them to go to university." He returned to school the next day. He started an organization called Newtown Helps Rwanda and sold bracelets to raise money to send those young adults to university. They told him that they loved school, but would probably be subsistence farmer with no running water or no electricity. Within a few months, JT was able to Skype back to their group and announced that he had raised enough money to send one of the orphan genocide survivors to university for a year. This was $2,000.
Wow, how
He made a
powerful
personal
would this
commitment
be
at that time to raise the
to
remaining
duplicate
amount for the next 3 years. Today, since the tragedy, he's not only made good on his promise, but he's helped build self-sustaining fish ponds for former children soldiers in Uganda and helped countless
connecting these
severely
people,
traumatized
really
children
forming
and their
bonds
families
that
within
will last.
Connecticut. He continues to do this on his own. And the lesson here for all of us is that JT continues this effort because it makes him feel good. His compassion for others is literally healing him. When he does for others, he receives the benefit as well. And there's lots of research behind this. Literally, the nurturing, healing love that he's giving out, he's getting back. It's incredibly powerful because this is the only trauma treatment he receives. And from what I've seen, it's the most powerful form of trauma treatment there is. Stepping outside your own pain and helping others. You know what was really interesting to me? The Rwandan genocide survivors shared their healing journey that had the same components of the formula for choosing love: courage, gratitude, forgiveness, and compassion in action. That is how you choose love in any situation.
Compassion is healing. It is powerful. This is the end of the lesson. Please take the time to process and practice this at home. I'll see you in a week for the final lesson. Thanks for being here and for being open-minded. See you next time.
It's all part of us. We can all choose love